Welcome to The Catholic Perspective, a podcast brought to you by rcspirituality.org. Enjoy the episode.
Today I'm with Father Jorge Obregon. Father, welcome to the show.
Jeff, thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here.
Awesome. It's great to have you here. And you've just written a new book called Suffering Changes Everything.
You know, I would have never thought that would be a topic for me. I met a wonderful young mother, and I read her book of how she had lost, what she went through when she lost her 2-year-old boy, the first one, and the beauty of a soul that does not get angry with God, because many people get angry and so we made a good friendship, and you know, little by little, I developed into this.
So I can't imagine losing a child.
I mean, as a priest, I will never know what that is. You are more close to that, right? Because you are a father. But yes, it is said that there is no greater pain on earth than to lose a child. We all lose our parents. We might lose a sibling. We might lose a friend. But it's not very common to lose a child when you're still living. And I can't imagine what that is like.
Mm-hmm. So your co-author experienced that.
She did. She is from a city 1 hour away from Monterrey, Mexico. Monterrey is, as you all might know, the third largest city, maybe industrially the second city where I was born. And she, when he was 1 year and 8 months old, discovered this cancer and spent about 9 months in Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, Texas. And I happened to be gifted her book, which translated into English is called, it's on Amazon, Everything is Going to Be All Right. Read the book and I have never sobbed. I'm not talking about crying, sobbing as much with any book in my life as I did with hers. And that's what brought us together.
Mm-hmm. So she must have suffered greatly through that loss. Did she ever get mad with God?
She had complaints to God. There are some pages in her book that really struck my heart, in which she was saying what any mother or father or any one of us naturally say, why me? Mm-hmm. When something's going on. And what struck me so much and impacted my priestly heart was reading about a young mother who could have been my friend. You know, she was in a city that was very close to mine, and she being brought slowly into God's purifying fire. What you read in spiritual books, Jeff, you know, we read about the purgative stage and then the illuminative stage and then the unitive, and how, you know, St. Teresa of Avila in her mansions talks about this purifying fire and the dark night of the soul. Seeing this just simple young girl, I could almost call her. I mean, she's a young woman. But she was saying, I'm in Houston with my 2-year-old boy and all of my friends. I'm checking Facebook and they're all in the bar dating guys and going out. And I'm here, a young mom who got married very young with a boy in the cancer, in the oncology, portion of the hospital. So yes, she had some complaints, but she really never got mad. No.
Mm-hmm. I have several friends right now that are suffering from cancer. And it's really challenging to watch them go through what they're going through, whether that be the chemo, the radiation, or even facing the end of life. And I often wonder, why does God allow us to suffer, Father?
There's a portion, and even if you're an intellectual, you have to accept that there's a portion of this that's a mystery. We really can't get to the bottom of it. We will know many things, but we do know from a beautiful letter, I believe it's in Romans from St. Paul. I hope I'm getting it right. Everything contributes for the good of those who love God. And we see that throughout history. And I've seen it in my own life, how we tend to be born with a great tendency to pride and vanity. And the first thing that a soul reacts to, or what happens to each one of us when we start being purified by God is you see your littleness, your nothingness. You become truly the creature that needs to look up to his creator, his or her creator, and say, help, I need you. I can't do it on my own. We become, Jeff, I believe in the phrase that I read once, that the human being that has not suffered is not really a human being. They have not gone through a very elemental and foundational experience of suffering in life. We Catholics say in the Rosary, Valley of Tears. And there's a reason why we say that. And then if you go back to Shakespeare, there's only two true things in life, or sure things in life: death and taxes. And I say that illness is also a way of, it's a form of death.
Offline, you shared a powerful story with me about a woman that had been burned with acid. Can you share that story with the listeners, Father Jorge?
Sure. So Nayeli and I had a previous book on a totally different topic, and it wasn't as successful as I would have wanted because it was COVID time. I couldn't promote my book, and I'm not famous, so I haven't been picked up by any editorial. And so we decided that we were going to do a book tour, and we had no idea of the disproportion between our message, which was Christ's message really in us and through us, and what the people were going to experience in every single presentation, except for one, maybe because we were in a mall. It was a very small city in Colombia, and we did it in a mall, so you could hear all the people kind of walking, but you could hear a pin drop in all the cases. Well, the last one we did was in a city where I spent some of my happiest years of my life, Bogota, Colombia, the capital. And it was in a hotel that I used to run like a leadership course for young adults. And it was a packed audience. And so I saw a woman to my left on the left-hand side of the auditorium who had a face that was totally deformed. And I thought, boy, what story are we going to hear from her? So we just carried on. We had always an MC. She had some questions that we would give her. And then we wanted to hear and listen and be and accompany the people. So we answered a couple of questions. And I remember before hearing her, somebody said, Father, how do you explain this to people who have no faith? So we try to, give an answer that was adequate and correct. And then this woman raised her hand, and I thought to myself, oh boy, here we're in for something. Let's see what's going to happen. And she, in 2 minutes, said, Father, as you can see my face, I am from Venezuela. I was moved, just to leave Venezuela because of this, communist regime. I came to Bogota, and somebody confusing me for somebody else, sprayed me with acid. I have had 47 reconstructions of my face with other parts of my body. At that moment, Jeff, everybody, you could hear a pin drop. And it's like, if that wasn't bad enough. And she said, well, and then a couple of years later, my daughter, who was 15, she couldn't cope with the fact that I was not ever going to look like her mother, threw herself from the 5th floor, instantaneous brain death. And I got cancer. But with chemo, I overcame that. And then I lost my mother. And so you could just feel in the auditorium just a lack of air. And she wasn't done. And she said, I lost my mother, and then my husband left me. And although I went into remission of my cancer, I was just diagnosed with the fact that it came back and it's metastasized in my whole body. And all I want to talk about is love. So I think that if you could hear a pin drop before, at this moment, we were out of breath. And I told the auditorium, and along with Nayeli, first I congratulated her. I thanked her for her example, for her testimony, and for being there. And we said, we are nothing compared to you. You could be up here giving a better witness of what this means. And I thank you for who you are. And I told the auditorium, I think we don't need to talk more. She has given all the answers to all the questions that could have been asked about this topic of what do I do with suffering?
Go deeper on that piece of love.
Yeah, we know that we know from sacred scripture and from countless witnesses in history that God is love. He is love. He doesn't have love. He He is the reason for creation could not have been a need for, it wasn't necessity. Creation is an act of love of somebody who wants to share the love that goes on between the three persons in the Trinity and share it with other beings. And he created us. Well, we who need visuals to understand have the best visual, the best witness in Jesus, who opens up his arms, opens up his heart, which is infinite as he is infinite, and tells all of humanity, it doesn't matter that you sin 1,000 times. It doesn't matter that you are crucifying me. I'm telling my Father that you don't know what you're doing. It doesn't matter that you know the truth and you continue to choose selfishness and passions and sex and drugs and your egotism. I love you. And I'm going to show it to you, not from Cancun in a hammock, not from the Hamptons in New York on a yacht, but here on this cross. This is my greatest sign of my love to you. And what John Paul II, who is my personal hero, wrote in his apostolic letter, which I really recommend the audience to go and read, and it's for free there in Vatican.va. It's called Salvifici Doloris, but you can look it up as The Redemptive Value of Suffering by John Paul II. He says that God opened to humanity the gift of suffering by coming into our suffering and being capable of telling each one of us, I don't know what hell you're going through. I don't know how it was in your own cancer story or the death of your wife, your beloved, whoever it is. There's no place you can be where I have not been before. You are not alone. And we know from traditional literature, from the classics, how the human heart yearns for connection. And that's why somebody was telling me recently, do you notice why so many people have a dog and are walking their dog? Because they don't know how to make friendships. And the dog becomes at least somebody I can talk to and kind of make out of him a human being. So love and pain was a conclusion that we came to many times as we prepared to write this book, and through our own suffering are the two sides of the same coin. Where you find love, there has to be self-giving actions, and that sometimes is painful.
Well, you gave a great example of somebody that did suffer very publicly, and that was St. John Paul II. We were able to, as a world, witness how somebody could suffer.
Yes, I think he, just like Jesus, his master, he not only wrote that document, but from 1994 on, when he suffered the fall and he broke his femur, and then he started getting Parkinson's, and then other things just of age, because I believe he died at 84. John Paul II, we saw his how do you call it? The tracheotomy, when he suffered that, and you could see the frustration of the saint when he came out to the balcony of St. Peter's Square and kind of struck with his hand the little mini podium, because he had been used to 27 years of addressing people and just being close to his flock, and he couldn't do it, and he kind of hit it, and you could see, now that's a saint, not because he's getting angry, but because he's a man, he's frustrated. So we know that he went through a lot, and he did not, as we used to say then, and we say it now, he didn't come down from his cross. He didn't care if there was, if he was, if he didn't look good on camera. He was such I would say, a handsome human being during the 80s and part of the 90s. And suddenly you see somebody who's just crouching and crouching and crouching and being smaller and smaller. And he lost that joyful expression in his face. But he taught all of us that there's a greater joy in uniting yourself to the sufferings, as St. Paul says, sufferings that lack Christ, which is only a way of saying it, because nothing lacks in Christ's actions. other than the fact that we share them with him.
It's like co-suffering.
It's co-suffering. It's that buddy of yours, that friend of yours, the woman. Maybe if you're a woman and you're listening to this, it's your friend who just sits by you in the hospital when your husband or your son is in a coma or simply just going through a rough moment, and she's here not to talk a lot, just to tell you you're not alone. And who does that better than our Lord?
Mm-hmm. What do you recommend as far as if you are suffering or knows someone that is suffering? What should they do as far as that co-suffering?
So I'm trying to learn from the things that I've read and intuitions in prayer, because I myself need to go to this school, the school of suffering. And I don't think we ever master it in this life. We do in the other life. But Jeff, I think we all are moved by movies of heroes or saints. I think about Braveheart. For us men, it touched us, our generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who suffered a lot, not only physically, but treason from his friend, lost his wife. They abused of her and then killed her, beheaded her, if I remember well. And then the loss of freedom. And that scene that moved the whole world, where he is being put into the, let's say, a position of Jesus Christ. Well, everybody has their movies or their heroes that they've watched. And everybody has somebody close to them that you've spoken about where you said, did you see that? You never heard one complaint. How many mothers in the Second World War, especially in Europe, lost their husband? They were left with 6, 7, 5, 4, whatever, however many kids. And they raised them with no complaints. That is beyond human strength. That has to come from somewhere else. Well, my question to you, if you're listening to this and you're suffering, is you're being drawn in and called to something huge, to an imitation of these men and women that you have admired in your life. What does the best exposition or the best version of yourself want to answer to life? Do you want to spread that heroism that inspired you to new generations? Even if you're not very famous, it doesn't matter. People see it. And there's I believe in a special grace that is transmitted from heroism to others who receive it, young generations, new people. So I would say that ask the question of what you're called to, and that's to greatness, number one. Number two, in the religious aspect, that was very at a human level. I definitely know when I suffer, I just bring Jesus, my own personal Jesus, and say, Lord, I know you're here, right? And I know I couldn't compare my suffering to your cross, not only the physical cross, but the sufferings of our sins of all of us who should be his friends, and we betrayed him. And the third and last is also a common experience in all religions, is trust me, forget about yourself and go out and serve people. Dedicate yourself to others who are hurting, and you will find a joy that was embedded in you. It's a chip that God put in you. And there's no way you're not going to feel that by giving yourself to others, you're much more happier and you're not the center of the world.
Father, what was your greatest lesson that you learned as you were writing this book?
I would say that the lessons were more, Jeff, before writing the book. It was what enabled me to write the book. But one of the lessons, okay, now I'm picking up on one, which was a great one. I don't know if it was during the book or as we were doing the book presentations, but I thought to myself, some readers are going to say, come on, you, Father Jorge, like your sufferings because of the crisis of your congregation or your 40-year crisis or that. What's that compared to a mother who loses her child? But little by little, the Lord allowed me to see that. Think about any dad or mom who's got 4 kids, 3 kids, 5 kids, and one just, didn't pass a test. And the other one is in drugs. The pain that the father or the mother feels because of these little things it's total for that person. The father and the mother love each kid uniquely. And so please, if you're out there listening, don't underestimate the fact that your pain is, for you, is everything. So for Jesus, who loves you, it is everything.
Where can people get your book, Suffering Changes Everything?
So it's in Amazon. It's a self-published book. I have the hope, Jeff, I will be in Frankfurt in the book fair in October, and there will be many editors there, and I'll try to, get it out there, because I do believe that it is a topic that we need to give to people, to promote. But it's on Amazon. So Suffering Changes Everything. And we have a Spanish version in case you have somebody whose mother language is Spanish. Give them, it's, if you look for one, you'll find the other, but it's El Dolor Lo Cambia Todo. Pain Changes Everything.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Jeff.
God bless.
God bless.
You have been listening to The Catholic Perspective, a resource from rcspirituality.org. Please visit our website and check out more great resources to help you pray, learn, grow, and go. Please join our team of digital missionaries by subscribing at rcspirituality.org.